Okay,
Oh,
so
artwork. I know what it is. Oh.
it's beautiful, Gail. Okay, welcome everybody. This is the collection development workshop at our annual meeting. And we have Gail Santy here with us. And I just want to do a quick introduction before we get started. So Gail Santy is the director of the Central Kansas Library System and the Great Bend Public Library. Before moving into the director's chair, Gail was a consultant to small and rural libraries for 10 years. Gail lives in a world of possibilities and excels at coming up with doable, affordable, practical ways to make ideas turn into reality. Gail's coworkers say she has so much joy for her work, exhibits compassionate but decisive leadership, is a brutally honest, a fearless leader, a great listener and supporter, and has an admirable strength of conviction. So without further ado, here is Gail Santy.
Thank you, Jason. Okay. I am Gail Santy. Like Roger, I am the director of a system and a public library. And so Great Bend has 15,000 people. We're the third largest library in our system. When I got there, we had been weeding by the state standard, usually 3% a year, sometimes a little bit more. But I ran the library, the public library, through kind of what I'm going to show you today. If you attended my previous session on collection workshop, collection management that I did for SEK, you might be ready for this. I'm gonna throw a lot of stuff at you, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed by it. I really don't. You may be at the point in your directorship where this is right for you, and you may not yet, but tuck it away and remember it for later if it's overwhelming. So I inherited the collection, and like I said, it had never been really weeded. And so we applied these principles and we ended up weeding 20,000 items from the collection. We weeded so much out of nonfiction that we were able to bring great big tall shelves down to half size, which really opened up the library. And it just looks, people said, when did you get windows put in? We'd had windows all along. We just couldn't see them. But I want you to remember that 20,000, it was a lot of books that we weeded. Most of them had not moved in years and years and years. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. And what am I working on? I'm just going to share the desktop and then I'm going to pull this up and we will start from the beginning. Okay, Jason, can you guys see my slideshow?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, great. So this is Collection Management 2.0. It is the next step for those people who are really solid with managing their collection now. And I say it's future focused because a lot of what we do is based on what we needed in the past. We're buying books now, most of us, that our patrons want because they saw them on a list because they were already published. Some of us do purchase things that aren't yet published. I know that Jason sends out a great list that says these are going to be your best sellers so that you can get ready for those. But a lot of what we do is focused on the past. This is really going to help you focus on the future. So this is a plain white background, black slideshow. It's really kind of boring. But like I said before, Eric is going to have the slideshow and all of the handouts so you can print them out and really take a good look at them yourself at your convenience. So this is really about assessing and analyzing your collection. You need to use a systematic process. And what you're going to do is not determine how many books you have. You're going to really look at the quality of your collection. I'm going to give you some tools. They're going to help you really dig in there and see how is our collection meeting the needs of our community. It's not how many bestsellers you buy and how often they check out. It's the whole collection we're going to look at. And one of the things to really remember is that bigger is not necessarily better. Remember, we tweeted 20,000 items. We still are weeding actively. Collections need to meet the needs of the community. And that's not just the people who come into the library, but the people who don't come in. Maybe they're not coming in for a reason. So your collection needs to remain relevant. The analysis is going to provide you insight into some things. It's collection age. We're going to look at a couple of different things there. You're going to be able to suss out the strengths and weaknesses of your collection. And once you're really rolling along as a director and you just feel kind of like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know what I have to do to get ready for the report in January. I know what I have to do to get ready for this and that. I know how to present my budget and help the board prepare the budget. So at that point, then you really might want to start thinking about doing a collection analysis about every 5 years. We're going to look at qualitative data and we're going to look at quantitative data. They measure different things. The best thing that I can tell you about a collection analysis and assessment is it's going to help you move your collection forward, move it into the future. It's going to help you really establish what your library's goals are. And it's going to supply data to help you set your funding priorities for the collection. And it can even be a basis for long-range planning. So last year, yay, the 2020 Kansas Public Library standards came out. Those change about every 5 years. One of the things that I think needs to change are the collection standards because they're very minimal. But it is that the library spends not less than 12% of your total operating expenditures from all income sources, including your capital fund expenditures, to purchase library materials, either physical or digital. The library has a continuous weeding program, and at a minimum, 3% of the collection is withdrawn every year. A healthy collection will weed itself by more than 3% a year. You're going to have things that wear out. You're going to have things that walk away. You're going to have things that get damaged. That's what I mean by a healthy collection. A 3% is a bare minimum. The library annually adds items to its collection equal, but not less than 4%. And you purchase access to electronic content as part of your collection. I know that as part of a system, your system may purchase electronic content. This purchasing access to electronic content is a little bit different in Kansas because of the wonderful statewide buying power that we have. So the quality of your collection, we look at it in a lot of different ways. We look at use, which is, overall circulation. We look at currency, which is how old it is. And we look at it to see if it's appropriate to community. Again, a quality collection is more than how many books you have or how much you spend or the number of items you weed each year. So remember I said that I feel that the standards for collection are weak in Kansas. And when I started looking at states that are near us or surround us, I found that in Utah, Texas, and Colorado, they have much more comprehensive standards. They look at things that we're going to talk about today, and that's number of volumes per capita, your circulation per capita, not just how many items circ, but if we run the numbers, how many are circling per person in your community, your age of collection. We're going to look at two things there, and the turnover rate. And so what is awesome about these things is that when you run these numbers, it really shows you exactly what you need to do to improve your rating and ranking. So the states all vary in how they provide percentiles of ranking. And so what I've really done is I've done a basic and an enhanced, because this is not something Kansas has ever looked at. I believe we need to give ourselves a whole lot of grace and baby step into this. And one of the things I did do is I kind of broke it down by population. So when you have a standards checklist, it helps you move yourself forward as far as the collection. You're going to have your collection policy and it needs to have a certain number of things in it, but you've got to have a plan. And if you know the difference between policy and procedure, the plan is really procedure. The policy says what you do. The plan says how we do it. We're going to base this on your community needs. You will have selection criteria, specialties. Maybe you have a local history collection or a special collection. Maybe you had a famous author in your community, and you're going to have to know what your reconsideration is. Now, those things are all part of a policy. Your collection needs to reflect all of your population. Some of our communities here in Central Kansas don't have children anymore, so maybe they're shifting money from their children's collection budget over to their adult budget simply because they don't have children there anymore. All of our libraries are automated. Most are on our version of Koha, which is Pathfinder Central. And they know that if grandkids come and visit, they're going to be able to borrow really great materials from other libraries. The library spends a minimum of 12% of their budget on the collection. You purchase a variety of formats, including digital content, and you have access to different formats. And the access is important. The access is how we get things like whatever your SEK might purchase, the state collections and things like that. You keep your collection up to date and you weed by at least 3%. You offer interlibrary loan without charge. And interlibrary loan is an amazing way to supplement your local collection. And it really, there's almost no limit on what you can get for your public. Your library promotes the Kansas Library e-card. You may or may not collect local history materials, and you maintain a core reference collection that now probably is mostly all online resources, and that may be just a bunch of links. You don't need to purchase databases. So what do we do to analyze that collection? We're going to look at some things, and I've already kind of mentioned that, and then we're going to run them through some math formulas. It's going to give us data we can work with. This is important. You're always going to assess special collections separately. When you're looking at segments of your collection for age, you don't want your local history collection in there because it's going to skew the data. If you've got non-circulating reference still, you're going to have some older tiles in there. You're not going to use that as part of your nonfiction collection when you're assessing it. We're going to look at how many items you have per citizen in your community. We're going to look at how many items per capita. We're going to look at your age, again, 2 features, and we're going to look at the turnover rate. Okay. Collection size per capita is the number of volumes you've got and how that relates to the number of people in your taxing district. For the data that I'm going to show you, I used the number that came off of the 2019 Kansas State Library Annual Public Library Survey. It's not the newest census item data because that really hasn't been released, but the state library plunks that in for you. It is the number of print volumes, because for this purpose, we're just looking at print. You should, if you have a digital collection, you should evaluate it as well. But just for this, we're going to look at print. The number of print volumes held by the library divided by your legal service area population as reported on the state survey. So these categories are made up by me. And that's what you're going to need for yourself. You're going to need to figure out what standards are we going to hold ourselves to. I kind of took Utah, Colorado, and Texas and mashed them up together and hacked it and came up with something that I really liked. So most of us are in communities with populations less than 5,000. So we should have about 17,000 items in our library, or 3.36 items per capita, whichever is greater. Now, if you're in a really small library, I'm in a hotel room today. We've got a family wedding coming up tomorrow morning. Some of our libraries in the Central Kansas library system really aren't bigger than a hotel room. They may not have room for 17,000 items. So they're going to have to give themselves some grace here. But I think that you'll find that most of you have enough volumes per capita. This is your minimum if you want to score in the 50th percentile. If you want to score in the 75th percentile, you're going to hold about 7.42 items per capita, per person in your service area. If your library is larger, here you're going to go. You actually are going to have less items per capita, but you have a larger population. So your overall collection number is going to be higher. We're going to look at circulation per capita, and it is what's your total circulation for the year divided by the number of people you have. And if you've got a lower circulation per capita, it can result in a couple of things. It can be because you're spending less money than the recommended 12%. It could be because you have less volumes, less print items per capita. And what you may find out is that it may lead to more interlibrary loans per circulation. So most of us, we don't really track it separately, but we can look at our state survey results and we can see, oh, we had this many interlibrary loans this year, and we had this many overall circulations, and we can compare those. Your circulation per capita for a population of less than 5,000, if you want to score in the basic, this is just an average library, is going to be 4.07. If you want to be enhanced, which is like a super library, if this is you, you're wearing a cape and you know it, maybe even a crown, it's going to be 7.42. That's for this less than 5,000. And you can read where your population falls here as well. This is a big one for us. We look at collection age. I go in a lot of libraries. I do a lot of consulting. I travel and I see libraries. And I know when a library has mostly old things. I can tell. I know when the shelves are packed full. I've been in libraries where books have been packed 3 full on a shelf. And I ask them, what's your circulation? And it's really low. People don't want to have to dig through that stuff. I see if the bottom shelves are dusty, or if there's a circulation, a selection of the collection that's a little grimy. And those show age and lack of use to me. So when we look at the collection age, we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at the publication date, because that's how old the book is, but we're also going to look at the acquisition date and when we added it to the catalog. We look at both of those things because we get donations, and the smaller your library is, the more likely you are to rely on donations. But I recommend that you don't add everything to the catalog. If it's less than 10 years old, you can look at it, think about it. If you're part of a consortium like Seek and Find, look and see how many other copies there are there before you automatically add it. So acquisition date, we might be adding an older item, but it might be there might be a good reason for it. We're going to look at the average age of the collection and the median, which is different. And then remember, we assess any sort of special collection like reference or non-circulating materials or your local history collection separately from the rest of the collection, because those special collections can skew the results. When we look at average and median age, we look at them both because they give us different things. Average age looks at all of the publication years, and median range finds the distribution of that range. There's a little bit of math here, and we don't need to do the math because we've got awesome things that do it for us. So collection age, and it's the same no matter what size your community. 20% of your collection should be less than 5 years old if you're just a basic everyday kind of library. If you're an enhanced library, 20% of your collection is less than 5 years old. We're going to look at the statistics in just a little bit so we can see how your library falls in there. Your turnover rate indicates the number of times each volume, we're going to talk about print item, in your library would have circulated during the year if the circulation is spread out evenly through the collection. We know that in nonfiction, your zeros are probably going to circulate less than your cookbooks. And so that's why we spread this turnover rate across the collection. Turnover rate should correlate to your library goals. If your library goals are to emphasize popular reading materials, you're going to have a higher turnover rate. If you emphasize that you're a local history library, your turnover rate is going to be a lot less. And that's why you need to determine what kind of library are we? What do we want to do for our community? But the more important question is, what does our community need from us? Turnover rate shows how often each item in the collection was lent. And so it shows the relevance of the overall collection. We compare turnover rate to volumes per capita, which is an input, and outputs such as circulation per capita and interlibrary loans per 1,000. Okay, so your collection turnover rate is your circulation divided by your number of items held. Here are your categories and population categories and your percentile. And this is the thing that we already do and we're really good at it. And this is objectively scanning. You are able to objectively look at your collection. Now, even though you objectively scan, it can be highly subjective. If you purchased items that haven't circulated, frankly, if that's me, I get sad. I feel like I've wasted that money and I didn't do a good job. So that's why you work in teams. It should be more than one person. If you're a one-person library, have a board member come in and help you. Have a community member volunteer and help you. This is work that is actually really kind of interesting. It's dirty work, but it's interesting. So after you've done your statistical data, you're going to observe what you see in the stacks. And you're going to make a note of that because the data actually complements what we see. If the data shows that your collection age is pretty darn old, when you look at the stacks, you're going to see that. If your data shows that your circulation per capita is not yet even to the 50th percentile, you're going to be able to tell when you look at your collection. You don't have to take every item off the shelf, for heaven's sakes, nobody has time for that. One of the things that I find that helps me objectively scan the collection is to take pictures, because when I look at pictures, I see things that I don't normally look at with just my eyes. What does your collection look like? Is it ugly? This is where, is it inviting? This is where you use musty, and I know that you all use that here. So you use this with your statistics, and it really gives you a great overall data set for performing a collection analysis. So there we are. Let me end that, and I will.
Gail, I fell down on my job a little bit.
That's okay.
I've
Go
been
ahead
in
now.
attendance land. So Wendy asked what happened to the 20,000 books that you mentioned weeding. Where did they go? How did you get rid of them?
The hard way. The same way that you get rid of yours. We had a book sale. We sold some of them. The rest of them we cycled. We actually weeded our reference and our local history collection. Previous directors before me were very much into genealogy and local history, and there was no standard set as to what the collection would consist of. And so we had a lot of things that were purchased because one person wanted them. And so we as a staff and with our board determined what our collection focus would be as far as local history. So first it is our town, our county, and our region. And we determined region by using our system boundaries. Oh, you should be able to see my face when I'm talking, for goodness sakes. There I am in all my beauty and glory this morning in my hotel room. So we determined region. Now, within that, we're not necessarily going to collect things out of our county, 3 counties up, if it's already in someone else's county, because we're going to be able to direct them to that library for that information, or we'll be able to borrow it from the library if they lend. So a lot of our information, we weeded a lot from our local history collection because it didn't meet our parameters. What we did with that, and I'm very proud of this, some of it went to the genealogy library in Independence, Missouri. A lot of it, if it was something that was specific to one town that wasn't Great Bend, we contacted that community and asked them if they would like this copy as their primary source or as a backup item. A lot of stuff went that way. We couriered a lot of things out to individual libraries. And then what was left, actually, Wichita has an amazing genealogy and section, and they took all of it. Now, the reason that we were really excited about that is they have a room that is climate controlled, and they're going to keep with that climate control all of those items in excellent condition. In our library, they were a little bit in bad shape. And so it was great that we would be able to do that, and they would be able to preserve those items that were no longer needed for us. The regular things like fiction and nonfiction that didn't go in the book sale, our friends have an ongoing book sale. They have the necessary legal status for that. And they would highlight like books with a red cover. And so they would toss things in that had red covers, and it's $1 a book or $5 a bag. They just were really clever in marketing how they were gonna sell those things. And after about a year, whatever was left went to recycle. Wendy, does that answer your question, or do you have a better idea? No? Okay, Jason.
I don't see anything else in the chat from her. She said thank you, and she'll try everything.
And sometimes before we weeded heavily, we made sure that everybody in our community knew that we were going to weed heavily, that our board fully understood why we were doing it and what we were doing and how we were going to dispose of those materials according to our disposal property policy, so that board members would be able to explain it when they were out and about, because there's a lot more of them than there is just of me or my assistant director. And so in a smaller community, you really do want to market and say, here's what we're doing and here's why. And it may be that one bag at a time, you take them to the next county over and for the recycle. Sometimes that happens. It just really depends on your community. Okay, so I bored you to death. And
one more thing from the chat. It's more of a pondering than a question explicitly, but Kathy Hale from Savenberg, which is our smallest, I think, was wondering if the formula holds true for a population of 100. She said that her rotation books would exceed the formula and her circulation exceeds the % per capita.
Right. Your rotation books, you could pull those out like a special collection. We do not, because for our smallest communities, I mean, I actually have 2 that are smaller than you, and they're going to lose population with the census. Those smaller communities, those rotation books really do form the bulk of their popular and current collection. So we're going to look at this, and we're doing okay on time.
It is 10:44, and you've got till 11:15, so you've got about half an hour still.
Golly. Okay, so this spreadsheet is your library's and some data. Now, let me share this with you so that you can see this spreadsheet, because that would be important instead of me just looking at it. Well, first I'm going to show you about median and mean, and this is the average age of the collection. So we look at the year published. We've got 2 fake sets of data. We've got one on the left, and you can see that most of these titles are not older than 20 years. There's some new ones tossed in there. This one here has a 1998 in there, but whoopsie doodle, it's got a 59, an 87, and a 77. So I'm doing these because this is our dream library, and this is a more realistic fake set of data. So on this one, the average age is 2002. On this one, the average age drops down to 1994 because you've got these older titles here. Those titles might be very valid and relevant for you to hold in your library. They might be the great books, which you've determined is still something that you want to keep in your library. So when you look at the data, you've got to be thinking, why is it showing me this? Why am I getting such an old age? But your median age, remember, it distributes the range. So if you've got some older titles in here, you're going to get more information about your collection with median age, because look, they both have the same median age. Median looks at the average in the range. The percentage of collection less than 5 years old for this fake subset of data from 1959-77 is 2.40, because that's the percentage of this. I just wanted to show you that. I'm no math major. I use a percentage calculator, or I have Excel do it for me. Got a lot of stuffy stuff here. Let's look at this one. This is the fun one, I think. So this is your libraries. I pulled this from the 2019 published state library survey results. I included the libraries here that indicated that Koha or SEK or Seek and Find was your library catalog system. So if you didn't answer that correctly, you're not in this list. Or if you are not a Seek and Find library, you're not in this list. The reason that I did that is because Jason has done some amazing secret work behind the background, like he always does, that's really going to make it easier for you to take this information and use it for good. So we've got your library name, we've got your population. There's my cursor. We also have your registered users, your total revenue, how much you spend on your collection, books owned at the beginning of 2019, books added and withdrawn at the beginning of 2019, your total volumes held, your total physical item circulation, and then we get into the fun stuff. So I'm working on a small laptop, and normally I work on something bigger. Let's see if I can hide those. Yay. And I'm gonna hide these as well. And let's see. Okay, now we'll be able to see. So for Altoona, which is a smaller community, their turnover rate is 0.47. Their collection age median is 2004. Their average is 2001. Their CERC per capita is 4.75. Collection size per capita is 10. That's nice. Materials expenditure is 96 cents or 96 per person. And the total they spent on the collection is 2.4%. So we know that there's work to be done here, but that is often the case in a small library. When I looked at the number of volumes added and the number of dollars spent, it looked like they were adding a lot of donations, which is what a lot of small libraries do. So I've got the libraries here, and then down below, blast, I hid. Okay, that's okay. We'll get this done. I looked at, let me unhide them. There we go. Okay. Down here below on the spreadsheet, and this is something you're all going to get, so you'll be able to look and see where we fall in the basic percent and how do we get to the enhanced percent. Remember, turnover rate is how the overall range of your collection circulates. It's not just per volume like we report to the state, but it's a big look at everything and how overall this circulates. So if your community has a population of less than 5%, if you want to, I'm pointing, you can't see that, sorry. A basic library's turnover rate is going to be 0.57 if your population is less than 5%. So let's look at Mound City, which is less than 5%, and let's go to turnover rate. And remember, it should be 0.57. And let's come over here, and I think it's here. It's 1.6. And so what this does is it gives you an idea of how your overall collection is circulating. And then when we start to look at other things, which we'll look down here, when we look at your CERC per capita and your collection size per capita, and then we look at your collection age, it gives us some interesting information. It may be that your turnover rate is low because you've had to replace the roof and you've had to pull money from your collection budget to help pay for that. It could be that you've got some new staff and you need to spend some money on getting them to continuing education. It could be that there's a lot of different reasons why you might not be spending 12% of your collection of your budget on your collection. We could also think that maybe it has something to do with your collection age. And so what we do then is And I think I'm just going to do Yates Center because it falls under that 5,000. And then we can also see these items here. So we'll go over to Yates Center. And they're 1.03 for their turnover rate. Their collection age, median, and average is 2,000 and 1996. And so remember, you have a percent, a formula that you can look at. And I think our next is collection, SERKS per capita, collection size, and material expenditure. So if we come down here, we look here, the collection expenditures per capita is 4.97. Where are we? Turnover rate, SERK per capita, population, and things like that. So what it can really do, let me get back up here so we can see these things. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Unless there's a library that wants to call themselves, call out your name, and I will hide everybody else and we can look at your stuff. I'd be glad to do that right now because it's really kind of fun to do.
Gail, while we're kind of in between here, Mandy asked if the data is available to all librarians in the system. She's a board member, but would like to see this and use it for the rest, to talk with the board.
Absolutely right. Yes. The best part about this is if you're a seek and find library, Jason has already put a handful of reports in there that just gives you the information you need. It does all of this for you. Now, this spreadsheet is based on the 2019 and just the seek and find libraries. So if you're not a seek and find library, you're going to need to do a little bit of work for yourself. You're going to download the report from the state library, and your consultants can help you find that. And then you can isolate everybody else and just do yourself across the rows as you go. And then you could compare to other libraries in the system with a similar population and see where you stack up against them. But I wouldn't do that first. What I would do is I would do just your library and see where you fall. And I forgot to say at the beginning, if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Your SEK staff has all of my contact information, and you can ask me and I can help you figure it out. But what you're going to do is you're going to establish where your starting point is, because we've never done this before. So you can't expect to just jump right up to the 75th percentile right away. Establish where you are, what's your starting point. If you're below the 50th percentile, your first goal over the next 5 years is going to be to move your library up into the 50th percentile in 2 or 3 different categories. And there's a number of ways you can do that. You can add more to your budget. You can weed more. You can market your collection so that it circulates better. You're just going to have to figure out what's going to work for you. I can't tell you what's going to work in your library and your community. I can give you the data. You're going to know. You are the experts on your community and on your collection and what your patrons want to see, for sure.
I'll just mention that if you're not a seek and find library and you need help finding this data, you can contact Sharon or Eric, and they can help you get to the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's great information to have. And again, I have to say, if you're a new director and your library still needs weeding, don't look at this stuff just yet. You can look at it for fun and it'll tell you where you need to go as far as weeding. But this is the more in-depth stuff. Do I have any more questions? And you can unmute yourself and ask. I don't mind. I'll get right back on track.
So you asked for shout outs in the chat from a volunteer.
Yes.
Kanie said she's not included. Jennifer, Kanie wasn't on the list. So that's the only person that shouted out so far.
Well, probably I could have made a mistake because I'm a human, just like the rest of us. But Toronto will do it. Fun will play. Probably what happened is somewhere on your state statistical data, you put yes instead of putting seek and find or COHA, because I only pulled out the COHA libraries. But when I ran the reports in seek and find, a lot of those other libraries showed up. And so that's how I figured out, oh, they must have done something wrong. And it's not really wrong. It was just a mistake. It's not a problem. Okay. Which one was it that wanted it?
Toronto.
Blast, I think I closed that. Hold on, just, oh, nope, I've got it. Yay. Okay, let me come back and I will share that screen. Where am I? I've got too many windows open. And I normally have a very big stink. There it is. Okay, a very big monitor. It's like the size of a TV. So I'm working on something small here. Share, desktop. I'm just going to share this one. Okay, Toronto. So let me hide down here until I get to Toronto. And you're very brave and you're not there. Ugh. Come on, somebody else. It would be fun to do a small library and a big library because you know what? Sometimes the smaller libraries are better than the little libraries.
So Shanu called out she'll be a bigger library.
Okay,
and the next one
Lynn,
on the list
Lynn,
was McCune.
Lynn
McCune.
County District 1, Parker.
Okay, let's do this. Let's hide those. Chanut's good. Lynn County District 1. And who else? McCune, you said?
Yeah, McCune, Thayer, and
that's a nice
Sedan all
size.
volunteered as smaller ones, but
Okay,
take your pick.
I've got them. We're on it.
And then Coffeyville just volunteered as well if you want another larger one in the mix.
We can go back to do that. Okay. And I'm getting sweaty. I turned off the fan and the air conditioning in the room because you would not have been able to hear me. And so it's kind of a little bit warm in here for me. And I'm drinking coffee. It's morning. Okay. So Chanute has 9,000 and Lynn is big. It's a district library. It has more. So when we look at, let's hide all of this stuff so we can see where we are. We're hiding a lot, but we can unhide it later. Okay. So in Chanute, the turnover rate, and I've got to stretch this out. Let's see, here we go. Stretch it out so we can see. The turnover rate in Chanute, which is a bigger library, you can see is 0.64, right? So write this down for yourselves. Chanute is 1.78. Lynn is 0.64 and McCune is 0.82. So McCune is much smaller, but the turnover rate is higher than in Lynn, which is, you can't ever tell by your size. Okay, so when we look at this, and this is stinky, because when I hide things, then I can't see everything because I'm on a little thing. Is it going to work? Arrgh. Okay, just a minute. I've got paper here that I can do this with. I've got those standards written down. So when we look then at turnover rate, I'm going to find the page because you're going to present. You've always got to have everything just in case. Okay, your basic 50th percentile for turnover rate should be, if you're less than 5,000, should be 0.57. So McCune, you're doing great. McCune, actually, the enhanced is 0.83 and you're just at 0.82, so you're doing great. If you're greater than 5,000, your basic percentile should be 0.94. So Chanute, you're doing good. And your enhanced should be 1.42. So Chanute is doing really well. Chanute probably has the biggest library budget. They have the biggest population, more staff. I think that we're going to see they probably have more volumes per capita as well. So that's the books held. Let's come this way. So if we look then at your collection age, turn back to that. Here we go. Remember that population doesn't matter with your size per capita. 20% of your volumes, this is the basic 50th percentile, 20% of your volumes should be less than 5 years old. So for all of you, the average age of the collection is right close, and it's more like about 15 years old. So you're doing great. And to me, that shows that you're weeding well. when we look at, that's your average, your median, see here, Chanute has some more older volumes that brings that average down. Chanute is probably, is that one of the bigger libraries, Jason? Well, okay, I'll keep talking.
I'll speak up. Yes,
Yay.
we're one of the bigger libraries.
Okay, good. Thank you. Chanute is one of the bigger libraries, and as the bigger libraries, you serve as the resource center for the system. And so for that reason, you're going to have some items in your collection that are older that other people aren't going to have. Also, when I did these statistics, I didn't know what in your collection was a special collection. I wasn't able to tell when I pulled down your statistics off of a super weeder in Koha. You're gonna know, because I suspect you've got a nice local history collection, or you've got, you've got the great books where a smaller library might not have those. So this is one of the things that you're gonna have to go in and take a look at yourself. The circulation per capita, I think if you're less than 5,000, you should have 17,000 items, or about 3.36 items per capita. And again, it's right here. If you're a 50th percentile library, if you want to be that 75%, this is where you would need to be at 7.95 per capita. So if you're the larger library, you need 2.21 or 3.13. And so you see where you fall right here. Let's look at the collection size per capita, because that's kind of interesting. Collection size per capita. So here are the numbers here. In the 50th percentile, for a population less than 5,000, you should have 3.36 items. And for the 75th percentile, you should have 7.42 items. For a population of 5,000 to 24, your 50th percentile, you should have 2.21 items per capita. Enhanced, you should have 5.25. So you all, right here is just one of the things here. You're all doing really well on this. And the reason that you just don't look at circulation size per capita is because it only measures how many volumes you have. It doesn't measure the quality of the collection. It just measures the number there. Your materials expenditure, I did this, and it just shows you, let me slide over here, because I found this to be interesting. How many? This is a percentage, I think. Let me pull that up. No, this is per capita. How many dollars you're spending per capita on your collection? So you can see that a bigger library is spending more. They have a larger budget. Their buying power goes further. A smaller library may be spending less because they're relying on donations. And those donations can be new copies that someone in the community buys for themselves because they have to have it first thing, and then they donate it to library. I love those patrons. But you can see here that this correlates with everything else. And then you can see the percentage of the budget spent on collection. Now, remember that you're supposed to spend 12% of your operating budget. I think that when we write the standards for 2025, we need to look at that again, because that has been the same for a long time. It has not changed. And what I think it's not looking at is the fact that personnel costs have increased, benefit has skyrocketed. If you're offering health insurance, like Chanute's a larger library, they probably offer health insurance to their full-time employees. The smaller libraries are only going to be part-time. They're not going to do that. So Chanute, if they're like Great Bend, it's a huge, huge percentage of our budget. We can't spend 12% because we do offer health insurance, and because to stay competitive in our community, we have to offer a better salary than a smaller community would. So the standard there is 12% across the board. You need to determine what's going to be right for you. Now, I know that we actually spend less than we should, but it's because we collect less from our community than we should. We're paying for an HVAC system. And when we're done with that, then we'll be able to make a difference in our collection budget. When you're looking at your collection budget, you also want to look at what you're spending on periodicals. What you really want to look at there is what you're getting and are they being used. We know that since we've come back from the stay at home and we've been open for a year, our periodicals and newspapers still really aren't being used like they were before. And so we're monitoring that to see if that is going to take an uptick or if it's going to stay the same. And if it's going to stay the same, we're going to drop the titles that we're purchasing. We've got time for more questions. It's kind of weird to do this. I was really excited to do it in person where I was on a big screen so everybody could see everything. But Eric is going to send this out and you'll be able to look at your numbers, and all of the slideshow is going to be yours and the handouts as well. One of the handouts is about collection overview, and that's pulled straight from Colorado, but it's important to remember that the quality of a library's collection is measured not just by volumes or circulation, it's measured by a variety of factors, including use, currency, relevancy, and interest to the community. And that's what these tools can really help you start digging into. It also shows you in Colorado here, they have different categories by population again, and then by percentile of expenditure per capita on your collections. And that will give you some good ideas to determine what's right for your community. Because if you've got 100,000 people and you want to be in the 50th percentile, you're going to spend 6.94. If you've got 1,000, you're going to spend 6.81. But if you want to be in a higher percentile, it shows you where you need to get there. And so this is a tool, this is an advocacy tool that you and your board can say, you know, we're just in the 50th percentile ranking here. We want to move our library up in our community to be a 75 percentile library. And here's what that means for you. That means that you're going to see these results in our library, and you're going to have bragging rights when you go out and you talk about things, and you can show them the exact number of dollars you're going to need to move that collection up. And if you're going to use it for an advocacy tool, if you're like my community, there's no way they could give you that big jump in budget right away, especially when they're all in a dither about Senate Bill 13. But what you could say is you propose that over the next 5 years, a gradual increase to get you where you need to be to have that percentage of your collection, a percentage of your budget to spend on collection. It also talks about the circulation per capita, and they've got a bunch of different categories and things like that. I've got a collections checklist. It's got a checklist for your policy, the things you need to have for collection management. And then it also talks about just some things that you can bear in mind for your overall collection.
So I've had some questions in the chat. Just
Yay.
as a point of clarification, even if they didn't show up on the report you were showing us today, they're still going to be able to go in, plug in their numbers, and get the kind of data you're talking about.
Yes, if you're a Seek and Find library, those reports are already there. You're going to have to select your library and the year and push a button, and it's going to be done for you, which is amazing. Then you're going to be able to just add yourself to the spreadsheet, your own local copy, and you'll be able to see the numbers fall across. If you're not a Seek and Find library, I'm still sure that your SEK consultants will be able to tell you what kind of reports you need to run from your integrated library system, your catalog and circulation, so that you can do the math and move forward. And the math is real simple when you use it in a spreadsheet. And if that's something you're not real strong with, I know your consultants can help you. You may want to assess your children's collection or your YA collection separate from the adult collection. that is going to really give you some interesting numbers. And if you want to assess your children's or YA collection, Tammy will be able to help you with that as well. This is very interesting stuff. And I'm kind of a data nerd. I'm not a math nerd, but I like data. And I really like what it can show me. When you're talking about your collection, the data lets you take the emotion out of it and just look at what is and move forward. Yes, Jason?
I guess the other point of clarification, you are sending out an actual Excel spreadsheet that they can use.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to get everything that you've seen plus more. And it'll say different things than I am, but it will reinforce what I've said. And it might be easier for you to, feed this to your board one bit at a time and say, here's where we are and here's where I'd really like to see us be. I want you this month to read this handout. And this is your dream board in the world that reads everything you give them, of course. I want you to read this handout. And then we can decide as a group, along with staff, because the board shouldn't be doing it all. That would be micromanaging. Pick which one you want to do, which one you want to be better at, and move that way. It's a baby step.
Okay, that's all the questions from the chat. We do still have a couple more minutes till 11:15. So if anybody else has other questions, there's opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. And Wendy direct messaged, but she said, thank you for our gentle marching orders. And I very much believe in baby steps. I am a big library director, but remember, I work with a library that has a community of 82 and another one in the 90s. And then I work with everything in between. And then I've got Salina, that's a huge community as well. And I know that if you work 20 hours or less, you still have to do everything that everybody else did with less time, less resources, less money. And so definitely it's a baby step. It's a lot like when you go to a conference and you're overwhelmed and you just say, I don't know where to start. There were so many great ideas here. And as a consultant, I say, pick one, pick 5, but realize it's going to take you a couple of years to get one done. Oh yes, Patty Collins says, it's a slow revolution. I've always done this. It's a slow revolution, baby. One step at a time and we'll get where we need to be. And these are things that can help you become an awesome library. I mean, you're awesome already, but it'll make your collection awesome. Jennifer, thank you. You're welcome. I'm sure I'm missing people. Phyllis and Janice, thank you. And remember, you're going to have my contact information. Let me put it in here so you can find me. I am Gail Santy, and GSANTY@sekls.org. There I am. You can copy that and you can have my information. And remember, I am a director and a library director. And so it might take me a little while to get back to you, but I will. Kathy, yes, taking pictures of the library is the best thing ever. I had a presentation I gave when I was a brand new consultant about library signage, and pictures, take a picture of all of the signs and then have a board member come and take a picture, because boy, my goodness, you would see things that your eyes just glaze over because you've seen it so many times before. Thank you, Mary. And thank you, Diane. Thank you all so much for being here and choosing to spend your time with me.
And thank you, Gail, for
Bye.
sharing your expertise.
Yeah, you're welcome.